Welcome to the Millennial and a Boomer Walk into a Coffee Bar podcast.
The very best podcast to get your life advice in the form of a grande caramel macchiato in a venti cup, one third whole milk, one third almond milk, one third soy milk, double the amount of vanilla syrup, caramel wall in the cup, no caramel drizzle on top, upside down, of course, tall ice cup, whipped cream, rounded lid, one shot extra espresso, decaf, cinnamon sprinkled on the top, and for the name, that's David, spelled Dafydd, please.
Or to get your business, finance, and life support black coffee advice, I'm Dan, I'm a Boomer.
And I'm Chase, the Millennial. Thanks for joining us today. All right, we're back again. So excited to be back with you again for episode number 3.
Exactly.
I don't know if you've heard this or not, but third time's a charm.
I think you kind of got stuck in that. In fact, one of the things I wanted to say is you sound like a broken record. Do you even know what that means? Because when I was growing up, vinyl, oh my goodness, vinyl was the greatest thing, and we'd put it on the turntable, and there'd be a scratch in your vinyl, and it would go, and it would repeat, and it would repeat, and it would repeat. So your third day's a charm is like a broken record. Just a little bit of history on that.
Oh boy, where are we going to go with this one? Because today we've got something special cooked up. Last time we talked about managing your own career. If you haven't caught that, that's kind of part 1 of a 2-part series on, generally a bigger picture view on business, but specifically on your career.
We did, and we're kind of sticking with the business themes right here. Of course, we may get off of that in the future and go elsewhere, but career planning. How do you do a purposeful career plan? And it really starts. I remember in second grade. No kidding. I did a project in second grade where I did a bunch of clouds and I drew some rain and I drew a sunshine and I finger painted it. And I said, I want to be a weather. That's what I want to be. Second grade. And I kid you not, I don't know if you've ever heard that.
No, I never have.
And so guess what? That's my career plan from second grade on. And when I was in college, guess what I pursued? I pursued a career in weather reporting field, actually in climatology. And that was where I was headed.
People ask me all the time, Chase, why are you so good looking? And my answer always is because my dad's a weatherman. Obviously, from a movie you haven't seen.
Probably not. I mean, maybe that's, yeah, I think that. Anyway, so it all starts out early in your life. Some people want to be a fireman, some people want to be a policeman. And we always say that as a young child, but how many people actually say, I'm going to follow through with that plan and go do it? But there will be a point in time when you say, my initial pursuit is going to be this. Because if you don't have a plan and you don't have a purpose, you won't get to where you're headed. You'll just kind of let the society steer you in the direction that you want to go, or maybe that you don't want to go.
I think what you're saying is that 15, 16, 17-year-old teenagers maybe don't know everything that they think that they know, and that where they think they want to go at 15 isn't where they actually want to be when they're 25 or 35.
That's exactly right. I would have said it this way a little bit. A 15 and 16-year-old millennial doesn't really know where they're going or what they're going to do. But guess what? A 15 and 16-year-old boomer doesn't have a clue either. So I'll give you a little bit of more background. Is I went to college and I pursued my career in weather and long range weather forecasting, and I went and got a job, and I hated it. I just, so I thought, well, wow, am I going to make this career? And that field is really unusual because you see, I worked for a television station. I was the weather producer, and the glamour from your bedroom or your front room watching it on TV is a whole lot different than the lack of glamour when you're doing it. We worked in a big steel shed that didn't have really good climate control, and they took away my chair at one point in time. I sat on the concrete floor and I tore weather maps, and literally that's what I did. And I'm like, I can't do this. I just can't do it. And it was at the same time when I was trying to pursue a career in that field, but I couldn't do it. So I think you have a similar experience too, and maybe not as detailed as mine, but your career or your pursuit of education early on in life is not where you ended up.
No, in fact, talking about a career plan, I didn't even have a solid plan to get into education. It kind of fell in my lap, which we'll get into that story at some point, I'm sure. But the point of today is my undergrad has nothing to do with education. I spent 3.5 years. I crammed 4 years into 3.5, and you crammed 4 years into
5.5. I was on the accelerated program actually.
and neither of us studied what we ended up doing. Um, after, let's see, it was probably 7 years after I finished my undergrad that I decided, hey, this education thing, there's something to this. I really enjoy working in the education field. I think I might go back and get a degree in education.
Before we get there, I just want to make a point. If you're somewhere you don't like, change it. If you're in an education field and you don't like what career that brought you to, or you're in a career field that you didn't think or expect or want to be in, change it. It's never too late to go change. I just read an article about a guy. He was actually owned some grocery store, I think is what it was. And he thought, I'm going to change my career. 50 years old, and he changed his career and was wildly successful in what he's done. So if you don't like it, don't cry about it and complain about it and kick the can down the road. Actually take the opportunity to change it. Now, you went back to school and changed you got a master's degree in education field. I went back and I changed my education and I went and got a technical degree in the aerospace industry. And I loved the change that I did. I wasn't happy where I was. I don't know that you weren't happy, but you looked at an opportunity that was otherwise, but you went back and did something about that and pursued alternate education in the career field that you wanted to go into.
I know this is not in the notes of what we were planning on talking about, but I'm curious. For me, going back and studying education while I was working in the education field, as opposed to my undergrad where I wasn't working, I was a full time student. For me, it was wonderful. I was taking things that I was studying nights and weekends and immediately applying those things to what I was actually physically working on right then and there. And I think because of that, because like this is actually applicable to me today, right now, I enjoyed it a
Yep.
lot more.
Yeah, and that's what I did is I got out of the weather field and actually was working in a technology field, and I too went back and got another degree in that field at the same time I was working in the field. Let me tell you, it's hard, and I had a family, and you had a family, and but if you don't like what you're doing, by all means, change it and take the opportunity to do it. That's what a career plan is all about. I had all intents of going down this path, and boy, life changed, and I went down this career path, but I made the best of it. If you have lemons,
Make lemonade.
there you go. Those are so funny, right?
Yeah. Well, can I be a little controversial? We don't have time to go very controversial. I'll just be a little
A little.
controversial. As the education guy, and last episode we lost, who did we lose? We lost the number nerds
Yeah,
and we lost the multitaskers.
yeah.
Today we're probably going to lose the educators. But I'm going to say it anyway. As an educator, I don't think, and this is part educator, part millennial. I know this is part millennial. I don't think that college is the right fit for everybody. I think there are a lot of interesting avenues that can get you down the road, but what we've been force fed has been you got to go to college. Once you go to college, you go out and get any job you want. Maybe, but not really.
This is what the boomers did to you and your youth. I remember my dad talked to me, you'll never amount to anything unless you get a college degree, and you got to do that. So my daughter, your older sister, Sweetheart, you're going to college. I don't want to go to college. Sweetheart, you're going to college. I don't want to go to college. Sweetheart, you're going to the first year of college. I don't want to go to college. Guess what? She went to the first year of college, but she didn't want to go to college. She didn't want to go at all. So it's a misnomer. And I think we did that to you because I too think there are trade schools out there. There's an apprenticeship. There's family businesses. There's all kinds of things that society needs. And whatever you want to do, you can make that career move. It doesn't need to be the cookie cutter go to college.
Yeah. I look at kind of my non-traditional career trajectory. That's what I like to call it when people ask, like, how did you get to where you are today? Well, it was very non-traditional. I had already worked up to a state level director in it was $1 billion publicly traded company. This was not just like a mom and pop shop
Yeah.
that I was working in with a degree that wasn't accredited and wasn't in the field that I was working. Um, and I still did it. I worked my butt off
Yeah.
and got to that level. And I look around, I'm like, I could have not gone to college and still got to this point. Now there is a benefit to college, and um, we had a guy on our Edupreneur Mastermind. It's another thing that we've got from First Skin Education, and he came on and he said, "Why do people care that you go to college today, right? In 2024, why do people care if you go to college? It's not because of the degree. Nobody cares what your degree says. What do they care about? That you had some stick-to-itiveness to go 4 years and finish something really big." And I thought, man, that's a really interesting point to make because my degree is not in what I studied. My career is not in what I studied. Your career is not in what you studied. But the fact that we had a piece of paper that said we stuck to something for a long time is what mattered. So, thinking about alternate education options, there are ways in 2024 now that people there don't care about college degrees as much anymore. They don't. But what they do care about is they still want to know, is this guy going to stick with it? So, how do I showcase that through an apprenticeship? If I'm sitting with if I'm apprenticing somewhere for 2 years, okay, now we're getting somewhere. This is a new opportunity.
You know, you said something that I wished I would have brought in episode 2, that I wished I would have brought in episode 1, is work your butt off. And a lot of people don't necessarily do that. You know, we talk about being visible and doing this. Work hard, do the job. Your employer is paying you, earn your money. And a lot of people will say, well, I work a lot harder than the money that I get. Well, good, because that's going to help your career to a certain extent and as well. So I think the first thing is work your butt off. Um, and then this is crazy, but take some risks, right? I mean, you ought to tell our listeners about the risks that you've taken and how that really affected your family and your career.
Yeah, I was working a really good job, and it paid a really good amount of money.
It did.
It was money that in my 30s that I'll never make that much money, and I was making it in my 30s, which is wild. Um, and I sat down with my wife one day and I said, "Hey, I know we have insurance. I know we have a 401k. I know we have a very comfortable home and, fairly new cars. At least she did. I'm still driving a 95 Dakota." But, I said, "Hey, I want to do something crazy. I want to go out on my own and start my own business."
Silence. You were hit with silence.
I was hit with silence for a very long time. And it there was a lot of questions, as there should have been. And if I would have known today, or if I would have known then what I know today, I know a couple of things. I know that risks and rewards are often at opposite ends of the spectrum. So the bigger the reward, the bigger the risk.
Yeah.
And where most people live is they say, I don't want a lot of risk. You're not going to get a lot of rewards. And that's fine. If you want safety, you can have that, but you're not going to have the benefits on the back end.
Exactly.
I couldn't agree more. I think in 2024, the world in which we live is not built for risk takers. But the inverse of that is if you're a risk taker, you can do some amazing things in
It
2024.
is. Keep in mind as you take the risk, because I said, be willing to take some risks, but be willing and thoughtful to mitigate those risks as you're going through this risk taking. Now, you actually had a good job in a great field and you had made some really good connections. So it wasn't completely outlandish that you were going to go, like, it's not like, hey, to your wife, hey, Stephanie, I'm going to go open a Vespa store down, that's just not what it was.
That sounds wonderful, though.
Yeah, you may want to do that. But it was, I know people, I've worked with people, I've got the industry, you've got connections, and you were mitigating a lot of those potential risks. But let me tell you, it didn't come without some angst at a lot of times. And boy, let me tell you, you haven't arrived yet because you're still strapping for proposals and business and
Yeah.
execution and hiring employees and everything else. So what do you think? Are you pleased with the risk that you took in starting your own business?
I would do it 10 times out of 10.
Yeah.
I have absolutely loved it. But to your point, I did not just wake up one day and throw caution to the wind and start a business. I spent a lot of time while I was fully employed, and my friend Lisa Song Sutton talks about this all the time. Don't drop your day job until you've built up enough to take that leap.
Right.
And I had my first client signed, sealed, and delivered before I gave my notice. And then I worked out due to some just really great advice from a mentor. I worked out where it was a very long runway. I kept working with my company as a contractor for 6 more months,
Yeah.
which is unbelievable. I mean, the blessing and good fortune of that was it helped. It helped my wife. It helped me. I like to eat, and so it helped put food on the table. Now, I'm not the only one that took a crazy risk. You also took a very visibly crazy role. Tell us about that.
You know, my wife and I have always wanted to live in a big city. And New York, I'm sitting there thinking, oh, New York City, my family's from New York. And I thought we go to the city every fall. That would be the coolest thing in the world. And my company came up to me and said,
Wait. Hold on. How many people are in New York City? It's
I think there's 8 million during the business
okay.
day.
All right.
8 million, but I think there's more like less 2 or 3 million that are permanent
Okay.
residents there day and night. So 8 million. That's a big city. That's really a big city. So my company has been trying to open up international business around the world. And one of the opportunities that they had was in Shanghai, China. And I was on vacation with my wife, and my phone rings, and it's my boss, and he says, I've been pushing your name pretty hard. And I said, what's that? And he said, I want you to go move to Shanghai, China. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And as we talked, I, kind of warmed up to the idea. It'd be an opportunity. It'd help my career. It would be kind of fun, I thought. And so I got off the phone and I turned to my wife and I said, well, I got some good news and some bad news. And she says, what's that? I said, we got the opportunity to live in a big city. And she's thinking, oh my goodness, you're going to get transferred to New York City or Chicago or Seattle or some of these other big cities. And I said, that's the good news. And she says, well, then what's the bad news? This is our dream. And I said, it's Shanghai, China. So I took this role and we moved to Shanghai, China for about 3.5, 4 years. And as the distance gets further away from when we spent those 3.5 years, gets more fun, if you can understand that. Because while we were there, it was hard and it was difficult. And I don't want to go into the details, but to help my career move, it opened up doors that were unbelievable in the business and the industry and with the prospective customers that we had around the world. It was one of the very best things I did. Now, don't talk to my wife about that because
Too soon.
she's still scarred a little bit. But I tell you, she eventually got to where she knew Shanghai. She knew it better than people that lived in Shanghai there. And she took me to some places in the Hutongs with the best street food that you would ever imagine. So, but I did it. I jumped off that cliff and I landed. And I was glad to come back.
And for context, Shanghai has 20 plus million people.
26 million people. I had 26 million neighbors when I was there. And the big difference, this is a big city. It's a city that covers about 70 kilometers.
Oh, yeah. You wanted a big city, you got a big city. Yes, you did.
We did.
So we've talked about education and putting a game plan in place. We've talked about making sure that what you do showcases that you have stick to itiveness, no matter which avenue you take, whether full time, 4 year college, community college, apprenticeship, working at a family owned business, whatever. We talked about taking risks. We've talked last episode a lot about owning your career.
Right.
But as we wrap up here, because we're really kind of pushing the envelope as far as time goes, when you own your own career, it's important that you don't move backwards.
Don't move backwards. Always have a step in the direction that's going to advance your career, advance your challenges, advance your contributions to the company, and just advance what's right for you and your family. Take that opportunity. That doesn't mean that you can't take a downward step, because you could get a better life balance, work-life balance. But don't purposely move backwards, and think things through and go through and really experience whatever you can. I did talk about the 1 to 5 year plan. Um, I wanted to stay in the same company for. My dad worked for 30 years, same company, a company man. I, however, worked 5 years here and then went to another company. And that was unheard of as a boomer. You were supposed to make a commitment to your family. Now, I understand that millennials are a little bit more mobile, let's say, where contributing to a bunch of companies. Got to be careful about that. But what are your thoughts?
Well, I think similar to the college idea, you've got to have enough stick to itiveness that you're not bouncing around every year to 2 years.
Right.
You've got to have some length on your resume. However, with that, and I think you would back this up with your experience, every time you made a shift to a new company, it was beneficial for you. You were moving up,
Yeah.
or you were getting more money, or there was something you were getting more paid time off. Whatever it was, there was a hook that pulled you to that next organization. And if you compare one guy who goes, I'm going to stay in this company for 30 years, he'll have incremental gains as he moves up, but he moves up very slow. As opposed to, I'm going to put 5 years in as a manager, and then I'm going to switch over to another company, but I'm going to apply for director level roles. I'm going to make, 10 to 20% more money, more pay time off, more bonus pool, all these things immediately. As opposed to, I'm going to be a manager in this company, and then a senior manager in this company, and then a junior director, and then a director. So you're getting a little bit further, a little bit faster by making these 3 to 5 year shifts into other organizations.
I totally agree, Chase. I totally agree. And actually, that's a great lead in to next episode that we talk about, because I think it's a little bit different between a boomer and a millennial in what's important in a job. And you said, well, you want to progress, you want to go forward, you want to do that. But what does that mean to you? And what did that mean to me in my, hey, what's in a job that I want to go do? So stick with us, come back and listen to us on the very next episode. Because just remember, just because it's different,
Doesn't mean it's wrong.
there you go. Have a great day.